I never thought I'd be that woman. You know the one. The wife who gets blindsided, replaced, discarded like an old piece of furniture that doesn't match the new decor anymore. But there I was, standing in my kitchen on a Tuesday morning in late September, watching my husband of 17 years pack his belongings into garbage bags because he couldn't even be bothered to find proper suitcases. The morning light was streaming through the window, illuminating the dust particles dancing in the air, and I remember thinking how absurd it was that I was noticing dust at a moment like this. Like my brain was trying to focus on anything except the reality unfolding in front of me. The coffee maker gurgled behind me, that familiar sound that had marked thousands of mornings in this house. I'd bought that coffee maker 8 years ago, a fancy stainless steel model that Marcus had insisted we needed. Now it felt like a monument to all the ordinary moments we'd shared, all the mornings we'd stood side by side in this kitchen, planning our days, discussing the girls, living our life. A life that was apparently ending while I stood frozen, unable to move, unable to speak, unable to do anything except watch. His name was Marcus. Tall, broad-shouldered, with graying hair at the temples that I used to tell him made him look distinguished. That morning, he wouldn't even look at me. Just kept shoving clothes into those black plastic bags, the sound of rustling filling the silence between us like static. I watched his hands I'd held for 17 years, hands that had held our newborn daughters, hands that had built the deck in our backyard, hands that were now methodically dismantling our life together. Those hands were shaking slightly, I noticed. Whether from nervousness or guilt or something else entirely, I couldn't tell. The bedroom we'd shared was in chaos. Drawers hung open, the closet was half empty, and there were piles of clothes on the bed we'd slept in for over a decade. The bed where we'd made love, where we'd comforted each other during hard times, where we'd whispered secrets in the dark. Now it was just a staging area for his departure, covered in rejected shirts and pants that apparently weren't good enough for his new life. I'm Rebecca, by the way, Rebecca Ann Mitchell, though I'd been Rebecca Ann Thompson for the past 17 years. 42 years old, mother of 2 teenage daughters who were at school right now with no idea their father was leaving. I was a marketing manager at a mid-sized firm downtown, had been there for 12 years, working my way up from junior account manager. I drove a 7-year-old Honda, volunteered at the girls' schools when I could, went to book club twice a month with Diana and 3 other women from the neighborhood. I meal planned on Sundays, paid bills on the first of the month, remembered everyone's birthdays, and made sure we had family dinner at least 4 nights a week. On paper, I was a successful, together woman. A good mother, a competent professional, a reliable friend. But standing in that kitchen, watching my husband pack his life into garbage bags, I realized I had no idea who I actually was beneath all those roles. Who was Rebecca when she wasn't Marcus's wife? Who was she when she wasn't defined by her relationship status, her maternal duties, her professional responsibilities? I didn't know. And that terrified me almost as much as the divorce itself. Marcus, I'm sorry, Rebecca. I just can't do this anymore. Those were the words that shattered my world. Not even a real explanation, just that vague, cowardly phrase that could mean anything and nothing at the same time. Me. Can't do what exactly? Our marriage? Our family? Me? He finally looked at me then, and what I saw in his eyes was worse than anger. It was indifference, like I was already a ghost to him, already erased from his future. Marcus. I met someone. Her name is Amber. She's 26. She makes me feel alive again. 26. Our daughter Sophie was 16. Lily was 14. He was leaving us for someone barely older than our children. The absurdity of it hit me like a physical blow, but I refused to crumble in front of him. I'd save that for later, for when the girls were at school and the house was empty and I could finally fall apart in private. Me. Get out. My voice came out steadier than I felt. Marcus had the audacity to look relieved. He grabbed his bags and walked out the front door without another word, without a backward glance at the life we'd built together. The door clicked shut, and I stood there in the kitchen, staring at the coffee maker that was still brewing the 2 cups I'd prepared like I did every morning. One for him, one for me. A ritual 17 years old, now completely meaningless. I called in sick to work. I couldn't face anyone. Couldn't paste on a smile and pretend everything was fine when my entire existence had just been upended. I spent that first day curled up on the couch, crying until my eyes were swollen and my throat was raw. I called my best friend, Diana, and she came over immediately. Diana. Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. She held me while I sobbed, brought me tissues, made me tea I didn't drink. Diana had been through her own divorce 5 years ago, so she understood in a way others couldn't. Diana, you're going to get through this. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you will. Me. How? How am I supposed to tell the girls? How am I supposed to go to work and act normal? How am I supposed to wake up every day knowing he chose her over me? Diana didn't have easy answers because there weren't any. She just stayed with me, letting me talk in circles, letting me rage and weep and question everything I thought I knew about my life. That night, I had to tell Sophie and Lily. They came home from school around 3:30, backpacks slung over their shoulders, arguing about something trivial. Sophie thought Lily had borrowed her sweater without asking. Lily swore she hadn't. It was so normal, so ordinary, this sisterly bickering that usually drove me crazy, but now seemed precious and fragile. The moment they saw my face, puffy and red from crying, they knew something was terribly wrong. Sophie dropped her backpack by the door. Sophie. Mom? What's wrong? What happened? Lily's eyes went wide with fear. Lily. Is someone hurt? Is it Grandma? I shook my head, unable to speak for a moment. How do you tell your children that their father has chosen to leave? How do you explain that the family they've known their entire lives is dissolving? How do you protect them from pain when you're drowning in it yourself? I sat them down on the couch, the same couch where we'd watched movies together on Friday nights, where we'd done homework and had heart-to-heart talks and celebrated birthdays. Now it felt like a stage for tragedy. Me. Your father and I are separating. He's moved out. This isn't about you girls at all. We both love you very much. That will never change. The words sounded rehearsed because they were. I'd practiced them in my head all day, trying to find the gentlest way to deliver devastating news. But there is no gentle way. There's just the truth, blunt and painful and unavoidable. Lily started crying immediately. Sophie's face went hard, her jaw clenched tight. Lily, why? What happened? Me. Sometimes people grow apart. Your dad and I, we just want different things now. I couldn't tell them about Amber, not yet. That was a cruelty I'd spare them for as long as possible. Sophie wasn't fooled, though. She was too perceptive, too smart. Sophie. He met someone, didn't he? I nodded. There was no point lying to her. Sophie. I hate him. Me. Don't say that. He's still your father. But even as I said it, I wondered why I was defending him. Why was I protecting the man who'd just blown our lives apart? The next 2 weeks were a blur of pain and paperwork. Marcus moved in with Amber into her apartment across town. I found a lawyer, started the divorce proceedings, went through the motions at work, smiling when I needed to, hiding in the bathroom when the tears came unexpectedly. My colleagues knew something was wrong, but I'd perfected the art of deflection. Coworker. Rebecca, are you okay? You seem distracted lately. Me. I'm fine, just dealing with some personal stuff. Nothing I can't handle. But I wasn't handling it. I was barely surviving. I'd lost 15 pounds because food tasted like cardboard. I couldn't sleep without prescription pills. I'd catch myself staring at photos of Marcus and me from happier times, wondering where it all went wrong, torturing myself with questions that had no answers. My sister, Patricia, called me every day. Patricia, have you eaten today? Me. Yes. A lie. Patricia, are you sleeping? Me. Some. Another lie. Patricia, Rebecca, you need to take care of yourself. The girls need you strong. Me. I'm trying, Pat. I really am. But the truth was, I felt like I was drowning. Everyone kept telling me I'd get through this, that time would heal the wound. But they didn't understand. It wasn't just the loss of Marcus. It was the loss of who I thought I was. I'd defined myself by my marriage, by my role as Marcus's wife. Without him, I felt like a shell, hollow and purposeless. Then came the phone call that changed everything. The call that would mark the beginning of my true transformation, though I didn't know it at the time. It was a Thursday night, exactly 2 weeks and 3 days after Marcus left. The girls were in their rooms doing homework. I could hear Sophie's music playing softly through her closed door, some indie band she loved. Lily was probably on a video call with her friends, laughing about something I wouldn't understand. Their lives were continuing, adapting, finding new rhythms. That gave me hope, even on my darkest days. I was in the living room folding laundry, mechanically sorting socks, matching them up pair by pair. It was mindless work, which was exactly what I needed. My therapist, Dr. Chen, had suggested I focus on simple, repetitive tasks when the thoughts became too overwhelming. Laundry, dishes, organizing drawers, anything to keep my hands busy and my mind from spiraling into the abyss of self-blame and despair. The basket was full of the girls' clothes mostly. I'd stopped doing Marcus's laundry the day he left, that small act of boundary setting that felt both petty and necessary. His absence was everywhere in the house. The empty side of the closet, the missing toothbrush in the bathroom, the single coffee cup I made each morning instead of two. Every small absence was a reminder, a tiny cut that kept the wound from healing. When my phone rang, the sound startled me out of my thoughts. Unknown number flashing on the screen. I almost didn't answer. I'd been getting calls from telemarketers, scammers, people wanting to sell me things I didn't need. But something made me pick up. Some instinct, some premonition that this call mattered. Me. Hello? The voice on the other end was young, shaky, thick with tears. Amber, is this Rebecca? My blood ran cold. I knew that voice. I'd never heard it before, but I knew it was her. Me. Yes. Who is this? Amber. It's Amber. Marcus's girlfriend. I'm sorry to call you. I know this is weird. I just didn't know who else to talk to. She was crying. Actually crying. Part of me wanted to hang up immediately, to protect myself from whatever fresh hell this conversation would bring. But curiosity and something darker, something that wanted to see her suffer, made me stay on the line. Me. What do you want? Amber. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. I didn't know. I mean, I knew he was married, but he told me you two were basically separated already. He said you didn't love each other anymore. He made it sound like the marriage was over except for the paperwork. Me. He lied to you. Amber, I know that now. Rebecca, I'm calling because I need to tell you something. Marcus, he's not who I thought he was. He's not who he pretended to be. Her voice cracked and dissolved into sobs. Despite everything, despite the pain she'd caused me, I felt a strange pang of recognition. She sounded exactly how I'd felt 2 weeks ago. Lost, betrayed, shattered. Me. What happened? Amber. At first, everything was amazing. He was romantic and attentive, and he made me feel so special. Like I was the only person in the world who mattered. He'd text me good morning every day. He'd bring me flowers for no reason. He'd tell me I was beautiful, that I was everything he'd been looking for his whole life. It was intoxicating. I felt like I'd won some kind of prize, like I'd been chosen for something extraordinary. Her voice broke and she paused, taking a shaky breath before continuing. Amber. But then, almost as soon as he moved in, everything changed, like a switch had been flipped. He became critical of everything. The apartment wasn't clean enough, even though I'd spent hours scrubbing before he arrived. I didn't cook the way he liked, even though I'd never claimed to be a chef. I was too loud, too messy, too immature. Every day, there was something new I was doing wrong. Some way I was failing to meet his expectations. I listened, my heart pounding, recognizing patterns I'd ignored in my own marriage. The constant criticism, the impossible standards, the way nothing I did was ever quite good enough. Amber. He compared me to you constantly. It was like you were this ghost haunting our relationship. Rebecca always had dinner ready on time. Rebecca knew how to run a household. Rebecca never let the place look like this. Rebecca understood how to be a proper wife. I felt like I was competing with someone I'd never met. Someone who apparently did everything perfectly. I started to hate you, honestly. I blamed you for setting these impossible standards I could never live up to. Me. But I wasn't perfect. Far from it. Amber. I know that now, but he made you sound like you were, and then he'd turn around and tell me he left you because you were too controlling, too rigid, too focused on the kids and not enough on him. His stories never made sense, but I was too caught up in trying to please him to notice the contradictions. Me. What finally made you see the truth? Amber. Yesterday morning I woke up early. He was still asleep, or so I thought. I went to make coffee and I saw his phone on the kitchen counter. It was lighting up with notifications, and I know I shouldn't have, but I looked. There were messages from dating apps, multiple dating apps. He'd been swiping, chatting, arranging dates while telling me he loved me, while sleeping in my bed, while making plans for our future together. Her voice dissolved into sobs, and I found myself feeling something I never expected. Compassion. This young woman, who I'd spent weeks hating, fantasizing about, blaming for destroying my marriage, was just another victim of Marcus's inability to be satisfied. Another woman who'd believed his lies. Another heart he'd broken in his relentless pursuit of something he couldn't even name. Amber. When I confronted him, he didn't even apologize, didn't even look ashamed. He just shrugged, like it was no big deal. He said he was keeping his options open because I clearly wasn't mature enough for a real relationship. He said I was too needy, too emotional, too young to understand what he needed. Then he actually laughed and said maybe he should have stayed with you after all. At least you knew your place. I closed my eyes. The pattern was so clear now. Marcus hadn't left me because I wasn't enough. He'd left because he was broken, always chasing something new, something that would make him feel young and desirable and alive. It was never about me at all. Amber. I kicked him out. He's staying at some hotel now. But Rebecca, I need you to know something. I need to apologize. I thought I was special. I thought what we had was real. I didn't realize I was just another conquest, another way for him to feel powerful, and I helped him destroy your marriage. I'll never forgive myself for that. Me. Amber, can I ask you something? Amber. Anything. Me. How did you meet him? Amber. At a conference. He told me he was getting divorced. That his wife didn't understand him. That they'd grown apart years ago. He was charming and funny, and he paid attention to me in a way that felt intoxicating. I'd just gotten out of a bad relationship, and he seemed like exactly what I needed. A mature man who had his life together. God, I was so stupid. She wasn't stupid. She was young and vulnerable, and Marcus had preyed on that. Just like he'd probably done with others before her. Just like he'd eventually do again. Me. You weren't stupid. You were lied to. We both were. Amber. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know the truth, and to tell you that you're better off without him. I know that probably doesn't mean much coming from me, but it's true. He's hollow inside. There's nothing there, just ego and need and emptiness. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, staring at my phone. Something inside me had shifted. The conversation had lifted a weight I didn't even know I was carrying. The weight of wondering what I'd done wrong, the weight of thinking I wasn't enough, the weight of believing that Amber was somehow better, prettier, more exciting than me. She wasn't better. She was just newer. And Marcus wasn't looking for a partner. He was looking for a mirror to reflect back what he wanted to see in himself. Young, desirable, powerful. When that mirror showed him the truth, his own aging, his own flaws, his own emptiness, he'd just find another one. I'd been defining my worth by whether or not Marcus wanted me. But his wanting or not wanting had nothing to do with my actual value. It only reflected his own brokenness. I walked into the living room where Sophie was curled up with her laptop. Sophie. Who was on the phone? Me. Amber. Sophie looked up sharply. Sophie. What did she want? Me. To apologize. Your dad left her too. Or she kicked him out. Either way, it's over. Sophie. Good. She deserved it. Me. Maybe. But you know what? I think I deserved better than him too. Sophie stared at me, and something in her expression softened. Sophie. Mom, you did? You do. That night, I couldn't sleep again, but for different reasons. My mind was racing, not with pain, but with realization. I'd been so focused on what I'd lost that I hadn't considered what I might gain. Freedom. Independence. The chance to figure out who Rebecca really was, not Marcus's wife, not just the girl's mother, but me as an individual person with my own dreams and desires. The next morning, I called Diana. Me. I need your help. Diana. Anything. What do you need? Me. I need to remember who I was before I became someone's wife. I need to find myself again. Diana. It's about time you said that. She came over that weekend with wine and photo albums from college, from those years before Marcus when I was still figuring out my life. We looked at pictures of me at 20, 22, 25, young and bright-eyed, full of ambition and dreams. Diana, you wanted to start your own marketing firm, remember? You had all these ideas about how agencies could better serve small businesses. I'd forgotten. Somewhere along the way, I'd let that dream die, convinced myself it was impractical, impossible, too risky. Me. I gave up on that. Diana. Why? Me. Because Marcus said it was too risky. Because he wanted stability. Because I convinced myself being a good wife meant supporting his dreams instead of pursuing my own. Diana. So pursue them now. Me. I'm 42 years old. Diana. So what? You think dreams have an expiration date? You think there's some age where you're no longer allowed to want things for yourself? She was right. I'd been using my age as an excuse, letting fear disguise itself as practicality. But the truth was, I was scared. Scared of failing, scared of being alone, scared of discovering I wasn't as capable as I'd once believed. Over the next few weeks, I started small. Baby steps toward reclaiming my life. I updated my resume for the first time in years, polishing the bullet points, quantifying my achievements, reminding myself of all I'd accomplished professionally, despite feeling like a failure personally. I reached out to old contacts from my industry, people I'd lost touch with during the years when my world had shrunk to just Marcus and the girls and work. I was surprised by how warmly they responded, how many of them wanted to grab coffee and catch up. I took Sophie and Lily to therapy so they could process their own feelings about the divorce with Dr. Patterson, a child psychologist who specialized in helping teenagers navigate family transitions. At first, Sophie was resistant, arms crossed defensively in Dr. Patterson's waiting room. Sophie, I don't need therapy. I'm fine. Me. You don't have to be broken to benefit from talking to someone. Your whole world just changed. That's hard, even if you're handling it well. Lily was more open to it, eager even. She'd always been the more emotionally expressive of my two daughters, the one who cried easily and laughed loudly and wore her heart on her sleeve. Sophie kept everything locked inside, a trait she'd unfortunately inherited from Marcus. I started going to the gym 3 mornings a week before work. Not to lose weight or look better for anyone, but because moving my body made me feel strong and capable. There was something meditative about running on the treadmill, pushing through the burn in my legs, focusing on nothing but my breathing and my heartbeat. For those 45 minutes, I didn't have to think about divorce lawyers or custody arrangements, or how I'd pay the mortgage on a single income. I could just be a body in motion, alive and present and powerful. Diana met me for breakfast after one of these gym sessions. We sat in a corner booth at the diner near my house, the one with cracked vinyl seats and amazing pancakes. Diana, you look different. Stronger somehow. Me. I feel different. Like I'm waking up after a very long sleep. Diana, have you thought more about starting your own firm? Me. I have. I've been working on a business plan, actually. Staying up late after the girls go to bed, running numbers, reaching out to potential clients, figuring out logistics. Diana. And? Me. And I think I can do it. I think I need to do it. Working for someone else, following someone else's vision, it feels too small now. After everything that's happened, I don't want to play it safe anymore. I want to bet on myself. Diana raised her coffee cup in a toast. Diana. To betting on yourself. We clinked cups, and I felt a surge of something I hadn't felt in months. Hope, excitement. The thrilling terror of standing on the edge of something new and unknown. I also started saying no. When Marcus called asking if he could come by unannounced to see the girls, I said no. When he asked me to do his taxes like I always had, I said no. When he tried to guilt me about the divorce being too expensive, I said no. Each no felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Marcus, you've changed. Me. Yes, I have. Marcus, you're being unreasonable. Me. No. I'm being fair. There's a difference. My daughters noticed the change too. Lily started coming to me more, talking about her day, asking for advice about school and friends. Sophie, who'd been so angry, started to relax. One night, she came into my room while I was working on a business plan for my potential consulting firm. Sophie. What are you doing? Me. Planning. I'm thinking about starting my own business. Sophie. Really? That's cool, Mom. Me. You think so? Sophie. Yeah, you've always been good at what you do. Why work for someone else when you could work for yourself? Me. It's scary. Sophie. Most good things are. My 16-year-old daughter was wiser than I'd given her credit for. I realized she'd been watching me closely, learning from how I handled this crisis. I wanted to model resilience for her, not victimhood. I wanted her to see that women didn't need men to complete them, that we could rebuild ourselves after devastation, that our worth wasn't determined by whether someone chose to stay or leave. 3 months after Marcus left, I officially filed for divorce. The papers sat on my kitchen table for 3 days before I could bring myself to sign them. Making it official felt so final, so irreversible. Even though I knew our marriage was over, even though I didn't want him back, there was still this part of me that grieved the death of what we'd once had. Not who we were at the end, but who we'd been in the beginning. The young couple who'd fallen in love, who'd believed they'd be together forever, who'd stood at an altar and made promises they'd both meant in that moment. I signed the papers on a Friday night, my hand shaking as I wrote my name. Sophie saw me do it. Sophie. Are you okay, Mom? Me. I will be. This is just hard, you know? Even when you know something is right, it can still hurt. Sophie. I understand. I'm sad too. Not that you and Dad are getting divorced exactly, but that our family isn't what I thought it was. Me. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to grieve what you thought you had. That's part of healing. She hugged me then, this fierce hug that made me realize she wasn't just a child anymore. She was becoming a young woman, wise and empathetic and strong. If nothing else, I wanted this divorce to teach my daughters that women could survive anything, that we didn't need men to define us or complete us or give our lives meaning. 6 months after that, I launched my consulting business, Rebecca Mitchell Consulting, specializing in marketing strategy for small businesses and startups. I'd saved enough money to rent a small office space in a shared workspace downtown, one room with a window that looked out over the city. It wasn't much, but it was mine. The launch was terrifying. What if I'd miscalculated? What if clients didn't come? What if I'd given up a stable corporate job for a pipe dream? I had nightmares about financial ruin, about losing the house, about having to tell the girls we couldn't afford their college educations because Mom had made a stupid, impulsive decision. But I'd done my homework. I'd researched the market, identified my niche, developed a compelling value proposition. I'd reached out to my network, let people know I was available. And slowly, cautiously, clients started coming. My first was a tech startup founded by 2 women in their 20s. They needed help developing their brand identity and go-to-market strategy. I threw everything I had into that project, working late nights and weekends, determined to prove I could deliver value. When they renewed their contract after 3 months and referred 2 other clients to me, I cried. Actual tears of relief and pride and gratitude. I was doing it. I was actually doing it. Building something from nothing, creating value, making a living on my own terms. Patricia called me after she saw my business announcement on social media. Patricia. Little sister, I am so proud of you. You're really doing this. Me. I am. I'm terrified, but I'm doing it. Patricia. You should be terrified. Anyone who isn't terrified when starting a business is either lying or delusional. But you're smart and talented and you work harder than anyone I know. You're going to succeed. Me. From your lips to God's ears, Patricia. You don't need divine intervention. You've got skills and determination. That's better than luck any day. I hired my first employee 4 months after launching. Emma, a recent college graduate with a degree in marketing and graphic design. She was young and eager and brought fresh perspectives I didn't have. Training her, mentoring her, watching her grow in her role, it fulfilled something in me I didn't know needed fulfilling. I wasn't just building a business. I was building something that could outlast me, something that could provide opportunities for other people. There were nights when I lay awake wondering if I'd made a catastrophic mistake. Nights when I looked at my dwindling savings account and felt panic rising in my chest like floodwater. Nights when I second-guessed every decision, questioned every strategy, wondered if I should just give up and go back to the safety of corporate employment. But then I'd wake up the next morning, go to my office, and remember why I was doing this. Because I'd spent too many years being safe. because playing it safe had left me vulnerable anyway. Because I'd rather fail at something I believed in than succeed at something that didn't matter to me. Because my daughters were watching, and I wanted to show them what courage looked like. Patricia, I'm proud of you. Me. Thanks. I'm kind of proud of me too. Patricia, you should be. You took something terrible and turned it into an opportunity. That takes courage. Did it take courage? I wasn't sure. It felt more like survival. Like I'd been forced to choose between sinking and swimming, and I'd somehow remembered how to swim. Marcus and I finalized the divorce after 8 months of negotiations. He tried to take more than he deserved, claimed he'd contributed more to the household, conveniently forgetting all the years I'd worked full-time while also managing everything at home. My lawyer shut that down quickly. The day the divorce was finalized, I felt lighter than I had in years. Diana took me out to celebrate. Diana, how does it feel? Me. Honestly, it feels like freedom. It feels like I can finally breathe again. Diana, are you going to date? Me. Eventually, maybe, but right now I'm dating myself. Learning what I like, who I am when I'm not performing for someone else. I'm not in a hurry. And I wasn't. For the first time in my adult life, I was okay being alone. More than okay. I was starting to enjoy it. I could eat cereal for dinner if I wanted. I could stay up late working on projects that excited me. I could make decisions without consulting anyone, without compromising, without wondering if my choices would upset someone else. I took the girls on a road trip that summer, just the 3 of us. We drove up the coast, stayed in cheap motels, ate at diners, sang badly to music on the radio. It was one of the best weeks of my life. Lily. Mom, this is so fun. Me. Yeah? You're not missing your phone too much? Lily. I'm serious. I like it being just us. We never used to do stuff like this. She was right. When Marcus was around, our family vacations had been carefully planned, structured, expensive. He'd insisted on nice hotels and organized activities. This trip was chaotic and spontaneous and perfect. Sophie. Dad texted me. He wants to know if we're having fun. Me. Are you? Sophie. Yeah. Should I tell him? Me. Tell him whatever you want. You don't have to protect his feelings. Sophie smiled and typed back a response. I didn't ask what she said. It wasn't my business anymore. The girls had their own relationship with their father, separate from my feelings about him. That was healthy. By the time autumn rolled around, marking a full year since Marcus had left, I barely recognized my life. My business was thriving. I'd hired 2 more consultants to keep up with demand. The girls were doing well in school, adjusted to the new normal. I'd started taking pottery classes on Tuesday nights, something I'd always wanted to try but never had time for. I ran into Marcus at Sophie's school play. He was there with another woman, not Amber, someone new. She looked young, probably early 30s. He introduced her as Jennifer. She smiled nervously at me, clearly uncomfortable. Marcus. Rebecca, you look good. Me. Thanks, you too. Small talk, polite, distant, like we were acquaintances instead of people who'd shared 17 years of our lives. After the play, he asked if we could talk privately. Marcus. I've been thinking lately about us. About what happened. Me. Okay. Marcus. I made a mistake, walking away from our marriage. I see that now. You've really blossomed this year. Your business, the way you look, everything. I was wondering if maybe we could talk about giving things another chance. I stared at him, searching for any trace of the man I'd once loved. He wasn't there. Maybe he'd never been there. Maybe I'd just projected onto him what I wanted to see. Me. No. Marcus. No? Just like that? Me. Marcus, you didn't make a mistake. Just like that. You made a choice. You chose to leave. You chose to blow up our family for a 26-year-old you barely knew. Those were your decisions, and I'm not interested in being your backup plan now that you're realizing the grass isn't greener. Marcus. I know I hurt you, but people can change. Me. Maybe. But I don't want to wait around to see if you do. I've changed, Marcus. I've grown. And the person I am now doesn't need you. Doesn't want what you're offering. I'm happy. Actually, genuinely happy. And that happiness has nothing to do with you. He looked stunned, like he'd truly believed I'd been waiting for him to come back, that I'd jump at the chance to reclaim him. His ego was staggering. Marcus, I think you're being hasty. Me. I think I'm being clear. Enjoy your evening with Jennifer. I walked away feeling powerful, feeling whole, feeling like I'd finally closed a chapter that needed to end. Diana called me later that night. Diana. Sophie texted me. Said Marcus tried to get back together with you. Me. He did. I said no. Diana. How do you feel? Me. Free. Completely free. You know what's funny? A year ago, I would have given anything for him to want me back. Would have convinced myself we could make it work. But now, I don't even recognize the person I was then. That Rebecca was so small, so scared, so convinced she needed a man to validate her existence. Diana. And now? Me. Now I know better. I validate myself. The holidays came and went. My first Christmas as a single woman. I expected it to be sad, lonely, depressing. Instead, it was lovely. My parents came to visit. Patricia and her family joined us. We cooked together, played games, laughed until we cried. The girls seemed lighter too, not having to navigate the tension that had existed between Marcus and me even before the divorce. On New Year's Eve, I stayed home with Sophie and Lily. We made fancy appetizers and watched movies and counted down to midnight together. Me. Any resolutions for the new year? Sophie. I want to be more confident. Like you. That stopped me. Me. Like me? Sophie. Yeah. You went through something terrible and you didn't let it break you. You built something better. That takes confidence. Lily. I want to be confident too, and learn to play guitar. We laughed. I hugged them both. Me. My resolution is to keep becoming more myself. To keep discovering who Rebecca is and what she wants and what makes her happy. It had been 13 months since Marcus left. 13 months of pain and growth and transformation. I couldn't say I was grateful he'd left, that would be too generous. But I could say that his leaving had forced me to confront parts of myself I'd been avoiding. It had stripped away the illusion that I needed someone else to be complete. I thought about Amber sometimes, wondered how she was doing, if she'd learned the same lessons I had. I never called her, never reached out, but I hoped she was okay. We'd both been casualties of Marcus's selfishness, just in different ways. My business continued to grow. By spring of the second year, I'd moved into a larger office space and had a team of 5 consultants working with me. We specialized in helping small businesses develop effective marketing strategies without corporate budgets. It was fulfilling work, creative work, work that mattered. I also started dating, though casually. Nothing serious. I went out with a teacher named James who was kind but boring, a divorced father named Robert who still seemed hung up on his ex-wife, a graphic designer named Colin who was fun but emotionally unavailable. None of them were right, but that was okay. I wasn't in a hurry. One evening in early spring, about 18 months after the divorce, I was at a networking event for local business owners at a downtown hotel. These events had become part of my routine, opportunities to meet potential clients and partners, to stay connected with the local business community. I'd learned to work a room, something that had terrified me at first, but now came more naturally. I'd shake hands, exchange business cards, make small talk about markets and strategies and growth projections. That's where I met David. He was standing by the refreshment table, looking slightly uncomfortable in a room full of aggressive networkers. He was tall, maybe 6'1", with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He wore a navy blazer that had seen better days and a book pin on his lapel. I approached him more out of curiosity than networking instinct. Me. That's a nice pin. Where's it from? David. Oh, this? It's from the Independent Bookstore Owners Association. I run a bookstore downtown, Mitchell Street Books. Been there for 12 years now. Me. Mitchell Street? That's my last name. Rebecca Mitchell. David. David Harrison. Nice to meet you, Rebecca Mitchell. We shook hands, and I felt an unexpected spark. Not the overwhelming, intoxicating feeling I'd had with Marcus all those years ago, but something gentler. Something that felt like recognition, like meeting someone who spoke the same language. We ended up talking for over an hour, long after the formal networking part of the evening had ended. We talked about books and business, about the challenges of competing with big box stores and online retailers, about the importance of community and connection in an increasingly digital world. He asked about my business with genuine interest, not just networking politeness. He laughed at my jokes. He listened when I talked, really listened, not just waiting for his turn to speak. David, would you like to get coffee sometime? Not as a business meeting, though I'm always happy to talk shop. But maybe as an actual date, if you're open to that. I hesitated. I hadn't really dated since the divorce. There'd been a few awkward setups through well-meaning friends, but nothing that led anywhere. I'd been so focused on building my business, on being there for the girls, on rediscovering myself, that romance had felt like a distraction. But something about David felt different, safe, promising. Me. I'd like that. Our first date was at a coffee shop near his bookstore. He showed up 10 minutes early, which I learned was typical for him. We talked for 3 hours, until the barista started giving us looks because they wanted to close. He told me about his divorce 5 years earlier, how his ex-wife had left him for her personal trainer in a cliché that would be funny if it hadn't been so painful. He had one daughter, Emily, who was in college studying literature, following in her father's footsteps. He'd poured himself into the bookstore after the divorce, using work as therapy, just like I had. David, I know what it's like to have your identity wrapped up in a marriage and then have to figure out who you are without it. It's disorienting. Me. That's exactly it. I spent so many years being Marcus's wife that I forgot to be Rebecca. I'm still figuring out who she is, honestly. David, I think that's the work of a lifetime, figuring out who we are. It's not something you complete and then you're done. It's ongoing. I liked that. The idea that I didn't have to have it all figured out, that it was okay to still be discovering myself at 43 years old. We saw each other regularly after that. Coffee dates turned into dinner dates. Dinner dates turned into weekend brunches with our daughters present. Awkward at first, but gradually more comfortable. Sophie and Lily liked David. He didn't try too hard, didn't attempt to replace their father or force a relationship. He was just authentically himself, bookish and thoughtful and kind. Sophie, I like David. He's good for you. Me, you think so? Sophie, yeah, he makes you laugh. And he doesn't make everything about him. Me, are you okay with me dating? Sophie, Mom, I want you to be happy. You deserve to be happy. Dad's been with like 3 different women since you two split. You're allowed to move on too. Moving on. Was that what I was doing? It felt less like moving on and more like moving forward, towards something new instead of away from something old. 2 years after the divorce, I attended my college reunion. I hadn't gone to the previous ones, always too busy with Marcus and the girls and work. But this time, I went. I reconnected with old friends, people who'd known me before I became Marcus's wife, before I'd defined myself by my marriage. They all commented on how good I looked, how successful I seemed, how happy. And I was. Not happiness that depended on external circumstances or another person's approval. Deep, sustainable happiness that came from knowing myself, liking myself, being proud of what I'd built. My former roommate, Jessica, pulled me aside. Jessica, Rebecca, I have to tell you something. Back when we were in college, you were so vibrant, so full of ideas and energy. Then I met Marcus at your wedding, and I remember thinking he was going to dim that light. I never said anything because it wasn't my place, but I wasn't surprised when I heard you two divorced. Me. Really? Why didn't you tell me? Jessica. Would you have listened? Me. Probably not. I was so in love, or what I thought was love. Looking back, I think I was more in love with the idea of being chosen, being wanted, being someone's wife. Jessica. And now? Me. Now I'm in love with my life, with who I've become, with the freedom to make my own choices. That summer, 2.5 years after the divorce, I took a solo trip to Italy. Something I'd always wanted to do, but never had. Marcus had never been interested in Italy, thought it was overrated, preferred beach vacations where he could relax and not have to think. So I'd let that dream go, the way I'd let so many dreams go during our marriage, convincing myself that compromise was the same as sacrifice. But now there was no one to compromise with. No one to convince. Just me and my dreams and a plane ticket to Rome. The girls were spending the summer with Marcus and his new wife, Christina, which felt strange but also freeing. For 2 weeks, I didn't have to be anyone's mother. I could just be Rebecca, wandering through a foreign country, figuring things out as I went. I spent the first 3 days in Rome, overwhelmed by the history and beauty and chaos of the city. I walked everywhere, wearing out a pair of shoes, climbing ancient hills, and exploring narrow streets that hadn't changed in centuries. I stood in the Colosseum and tried to imagine the gladiators who'd fought there, the crowds who'd cheered for blood sport, the sweep of empire and ambition and human folly. I threw coins in the Trevi fountain and made wishes I didn't tell anyone. I ate gelato twice a day and didn't feel guilty about it. In the Vatican museums, standing in front of the Sistine Chapel ceiling, I cried. Just stood there with my head tilted back, tears streaming down my face, completely overwhelmed by Michelangelo's genius. A German tourist asked if I was okay, and I nodded, unable to explain that these were good tears. Tears of wonder and gratitude and the profound relief of being exactly where I wanted to be, doing exactly what I wanted to do, not answering to anyone but myself. Florence was next. I stayed in a small pensione near the Ponte Vecchio, run by an Italian woman named Giulia, who spoke broken English and insisted on feeding me breakfast each morning even though it wasn't included in the rate. She'd pile my plate with fresh bread and cheese and fruit, chattering away in Italian that I mostly didn't understand, but enjoyed anyway. There was something comforting about being in a place where I didn't have to perform, where no one knew my story or had expectations of me. I spent hours in the Uffizi Gallery, wandering from room to room, taking in centuries of art. Botticelli's Birth of Venus made me think about beauty and rebirth, about emerging from chaos into something new. Caravaggio's paintings, with their dramatic light and shadow, reminded me that even darkness could be beautiful if you looked at it the right way. I bought a sketch pad and sat in the Piazza della Signoria, attempting to draw the statues even though I had no artistic talent whatsoever. It didn't matter. The joy was in the trying, not the result. Venice was my final stop. I got lost immediately and frequently, which turned out to be the best way to see the city. I'd set out intending to find something specific and end up somewhere completely different, discovering hidden squares and quiet canals and tiny churches filled with Renaissance masterpieces that hardly anyone visited. I took a gondola ride, tourist trap though it was, and felt no shame about it. I ate seafood pasta at a restaurant overlooking the Grand Canal and struck up a conversation with an elderly couple from Australia who were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. They asked me if I was traveling with anyone and I said no, I was alone. The wife, Margaret, smiled at me with such kindness. Margaret, good for you. Every woman should travel alone at least once. It teaches you things about yourself you can't learn any other way. Her husband, Tom, raised his wine glass. Tom, to solo adventures and self-discovery. We clinked glasses, and I felt connected to them in that moment. Connected to all travelers, all seekers, all people brave enough to venture into the unknown. In Florence, sitting in a cafe overlooking the Arno River on my last evening in Italy, I had a moment of profound clarity. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. The water reflected the light, shimmering like liquid metal. People walked by, Italians ending their work days, tourists snapping photos, couples holding hands, life continuing in its beautiful, ordinary way. And I realized I wasn't broken anymore. I wasn't defined by what Marcus had done to me. I was simply Rebecca, full and complete and whole on my own. The divorce wasn't my failure. It was my liberation. It had freed me to become someone I never could have been if I'd stayed in that marriage, shrinking myself to fit into someone else's vision of who I should be. I pulled out my journal, the one I'd been keeping since Dr. Chen suggested it all those years ago, and I wrote, I am happy. Not pretending to be happy. Not trying to convince myself I'm happy. Not performing happiness for anyone else. I am actually genuinely deeply happy. I am proud of who I've become. I am excited about my future. I am grateful for this journey, even the painful parts because they brought me here. To this moment. To this version of myself that I actually like. That I'm actually proud of. That I wouldn't trade for anything. Not even to go back and avoid the pain. Because the pain was necessary. It was the fire that forged me into something stronger. I texted Diana from that cafe, wanting to share this moment with someone who'd been there from the beginning, who'd held my hand through the worst of it. Me, I'm happy. Like, really, truly happy. Not pretending, not coping, not surviving, actually happy. Diana responded immediately, even though it was early morning in her time zone. Diana, I knew you would be. I'm so proud of you, Beck. You've worked so hard to get here. You've earned every moment of that happiness. When I got back home, David picked me up from the airport. The girls had made a welcome home sign, complete with Italian flags and drawings of the Colosseum. We all went out to dinner at an Italian restaurant, which Lily thought was hilarious. Lily, you just spent 2 weeks eating Italian food and now you want more Italian food? Me. What can I say? It was that good. I told them stories about my trip, showing them hundreds of photos on my phone. Sophie wanted to know about the fashion. Lily wanted to know about the history. David wanted to know about the bookstores, which I'd made a point to visit in every city. Later that night, after everyone had gone home, I sat in my living room with a glass of wine, looking at photos from my trip. This was my life now, full of possibility and adventure and joy. I'd built it myself, from the ruins of my marriage, from the ashes of who I used to be. My phone rang. Unknown number. For a split second, I wondered if it was Amber again. But it wasn't. Marcus. Rebecca, it's me. Don't hang up. Me. What do you want, Marcus? Marcus. I heard you're dating someone. David, right? The bookstore guy. Me. Yes. What about it? Marcus. I just think you should be careful. You're vulnerable right now. You don't want to rush into anything. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. Me. Marcus, I'm not vulnerable. I haven't been vulnerable in a long time. I'm strong and independent and happy, and what I do with my personal life is none of your business anymore. Marcus. I'm just trying to look out for you. Me. No, you're not. You're trying to maintain some kind of control over me, but that ship sailed 2 years ago when you walked out. I don't need your advice. I don't need your protection. I don't need anything from you except punctual child support payments and respectful communication about the girls. Marcus, you've really changed. Me. Yes, thank God for that. I hung up, blocked his number for everything except emails about the girls, and felt another weight lift off my shoulders. I didn't owe him anything. Not my time, not my energy, not my emotional labor. He'd given up the right to any of those things when he chose to leave. 3 years after the divorce, my business had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. I'd hired a business manager to handle the day-to-day operations so I could focus on strategy and client relationships. I'd been featured in several business magazines as a success story, a woman who'd turned personal tragedy into professional triumph. Sophie graduated high school and got into her first-choice college. At her graduation party, she gave a speech. Sophie. I want to thank my mom for showing me what resilience looks like. 3 years ago, our family went through something really hard. But instead of falling apart, my mom showed us how to rebuild. She taught me that we're not defined by what happens to us, but by how we respond to it. She taught me that it's never too late to chase your dreams. That being alone doesn't mean being lonely. That happiness is something you create, not something someone gives you. I cried. Diana cried. Half the room cried. Even Patricia, who never cried, got a little teary-eyed. Later, Marcus came up to me at the party. Marcus. That was a nice speech Sophie gave. About you. Me. It was. She's an amazing young woman. Marcus. I know I don't say this enough, but you've done a good job with the girls. Me. We both have. Co-parenting hasn't always been easy, but we've managed to put them first. Marcus. Rebecca, I need to tell you something. I've been in therapy for the past year, working through a lot of my issues, and I've come to realize that leaving you was the biggest mistake of my life. Here it was again. Another version of the same conversation we'd had before, but this time I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no vindication. Just a mild sense of pity. Me. I'm glad you're in therapy, Marcus. I hope it helps you, but what you're saying doesn't change anything for me. I've moved on. I'm in a relationship with someone who respects and values me. I have a career I love. I have a life that makes me happy. Your regret doesn't factor into any of that. Marcus. I understand. I just wanted you to know. Me. Okay. Now I know. He walked away, and I watched him go without any of the pain I would have felt even a year ago. I'd finally reached the place where Marcus was just someone I used to know. Someone who'd played a significant role in my life once, but who no longer had any power over me or my happiness. David came over and put his arm around my waist. David, everything okay? Me. Everything's perfect. And it was. Not in the fairy tale sense where everything was easy and nothing ever went wrong, but in the real, messy, beautiful sense where I'd learned to navigate life's challenges with grace and strength, where I'd discovered that I was capable of more than I'd ever given myself credit for, where I'd built a life that reflected my values and my dreams instead of someone else's expectations. That night, after everyone had left and the house was quiet, I sat down and wrote in my journal, something I'd been doing consistently for 3 years. Dear Rebecca, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of how you've handled these past 3 years. I'm proud of your resilience, your courage, your willingness to rebuild yourself from the ground up. You could have stayed bitter. You could have let Marcus's betrayal define the rest of your life. But you didn't. You chose growth over resentment. You chose possibility over victimhood. You chose yourself. And that choice has made all the difference. The woman you are now is so much stronger, braver, and more authentic than the woman you were 3 years ago. Keep going. Keep growing. Keep choosing yourself. Love always, you. Lily came downstairs, unable to sleep, excited about Sophie leaving for college in a few months. Lily, Mom, can I ask you something? Me, of course, honey. Lily, do you ever regret divorcing Dad? Like, do you ever wish things had worked out differently? It was a fair question. A hard question. But I knew the answer immediately. Me, no, I don't regret it. I wish it hadn't happened the way it did. I wish your dad hadn't hurt us all. But the divorce itself? That was the catalyst for me becoming who I was meant to be. Before, I was living a half-life, being half of myself, always compromising, always shrinking. Now I'm living fully. I'm whole. I'm me. And I wouldn't trade that for anything. Lily, I want to be like you when I grow up. Me. You don't need to be like me. You need to be like you. Fully, authentically, unapologetically you. Lily, but you're a good role model. Me. Thank you, sweetheart. That means more to me than you know. She hugged me and went back upstairs. I sat there in the quiet house, thinking about how far I'd come. About the woman who'd stood in this very kitchen 3 years ago, watching her husband pack garbage bags, feeling like her world was ending. She'd felt so small, so powerless, so lost. If I could talk to that version of myself, what would I say? That she was stronger than she knew. That the pain would pass. That she'd not only survive, but thrive. That Marcus leaving was actually a gift, even though it felt like a curse. That she'd discover parts of herself she didn't even know existed. That she'd build a life beyond her wildest dreams. 4 years after the divorce, everything had settled into a comfortable rhythm. My business was stable and successful. Sophie was thriving at college, majoring in psychology, talking about graduate school. Lily was a senior in high school, already touring colleges, already thinking about her future. David and I had moved in together, combining our households, blending our lives in ways that felt natural and right. Marcus had gotten married again. Wife number 2, a woman named Christina who was in her 30s, worked in finance. I wished them well and meant it. His life was no longer my concern. I'd also reconnected with Amber, surprisingly. She'd reached out through a mutual acquaintance, asked if we could meet for coffee. I'd hesitated, wondering what could possibly be gained from that meeting. But curiosity won out. We met at a cafe downtown. She looked older than I remembered from her voice, more mature. 4 years had changed her, too. Amber, thank you for meeting me. I wasn't sure you would. Me. I wasn't sure I would either, but here we are. Amber, I've thought about you a lot over the years, about our conversation. That phone call changed my life. Me. How so? Amber. It made me realize I'd been looking for validation in all the wrong places. From men, from relationships, from external sources. After Marcus, I took time to be alone. Really alone. I went to therapy. I figured out why I kept choosing men who were wrong for me. I learned to value myself. Me. That's good. I'm glad you did that work. Amber. I'm sorry, Rebecca, for my role in hurting you. I know I apologized back then, but I understand it differently now. I understand the magnitude of what I participated in. Me. I appreciate that. And I forgive you. Not because what you did was okay, but because holding on to anger was hurting me more than it was hurting you. Forgiveness was for me, not for you. Amber. That's generous. Me. It's honest. Amber, I hope you found happiness. Real happiness. The kind that comes from within. Amber. I'm getting there. Still a work in progress. But I'm on the right path. We talked for another hour. Two women who'd been adversaries finding common ground, discovering that we'd both been victims of the same man's inability to be content. When we parted, there was closure. Real closure. Not friendship exactly, but mutual respect and understanding. 5 years after the divorce, I threw myself a party, not a birthday party or a holiday party. A celebration of survival and transformation. I invited everyone who'd been part of my journey. Diana, Patricia, my parents, my colleagues, my clients who'd become friends, David's circle, even Sophie's college friends who'd heard stories about me. I gave a toast. Me. 5 years ago, my life fell apart. My husband left me for someone younger. I felt like I'd lost everything. My identity, my purpose, my future. But I was wrong. I hadn't lost everything. I just lost the illusion of who I thought I was supposed to be. And in losing that, I found something infinitely more valuable. I found myself, the real me. Not the wife, not just the mother, not the people pleaser who always put everyone else's needs first. But Rebecca. Whole, complete, complicated, flawed, strong, capable Rebecca. These past 5 years haven't been easy. There were moments when I didn't think I'd make it. When the pain was so overwhelming I couldn't see past it. But I did make it. With the help of all of you. With therapy and hard work and determination and grace. I made it to the other side. And I'm here to tell anyone who's going through something similar. You will make it too. You will survive. You will rebuild. You will discover that you're so much stronger than you ever imagined. So this toast is to transformation, to resilience, to second chances, to choosing yourself. To all of us who've been broken and put ourselves back together, better than before. The room erupted in applause. People came up to me all night, sharing their own stories of survival and reinvention. Divorce, job loss, illness, betrayal. We'd all been through fires and come out forged into something new. Later, David pulled me aside. David, I have something to ask you. He got down on one knee, pulled out a ring box, and my breath caught. David, Rebecca, these past few years with you have been the best of my life. You're the strongest, most inspiring person I know. You make me want to be better. I'm not asking you to complete me because I know you're already complete on your own. I'm asking if you want to build a life together. As partners. As equals. Will you marry me? I looked at him, this good man who'd shown me what healthy love looked like. Who'd respected my independence while also being there when I needed support. Who'd never tried to change me or diminish me or control me. Me. Yes, I will marry you. The room erupted again. Sophie and Lily rushed over, excited and happy. This time felt different from my first marriage. This time, I wasn't losing myself to become part of a couple. I was choosing to share my life with someone who enhanced it rather than eclipsed it. 6 years after the divorce, I married David in a small ceremony in our backyard, just close friends and family. Sophie and Lily were my co-maids of honor. Patricia officiated. It was intimate and personal and perfect. My vows reflected everything I'd learned. Me. David, I stand here today as a whole person, choosing to share my life with another whole person. I'm not looking for you to complete me or save me or define me. I'm looking for partnership, companionship, love. I promise to never lose myself in this marriage. To always maintain my independence, my dreams, my identity. And I promise to honor yours as well. I promise to communicate honestly, to fight fairly, to never go to bed angry. I promise to be your partner in building a life that reflects both of our values and dreams. I choose you. Every day, I choose you. Not because I need you, but because I want you. And that makes all the difference. There wasn't a dry eye in the backyard. 7 years after the divorce, I was interviewed for a podcast about female entrepreneurship. The host asked me about my journey. Host, Your business success story is remarkable. What would you say was the turning point for you? Me. Rock bottom. My divorce was the worst thing that ever happened to me and the best thing that ever happened to me. It forced me to stop living for someone else and start living for myself. It showed me I was capable of things I'd never attempted because I'd been too afraid of failure, too concerned with maintaining stability. When that stability was ripped away, I had nothing left to lose. So I took risks. I bet on myself. And it paid off. Host. What advice would you give to women going through similar situations? Me. First, feel your feelings. Don't rush the grief process. It's okay to be devastated, angry, scared. Those emotions are valid, but don't get stuck there. Eventually, you have to make a choice. You can let the betrayal define you, or you can let it refine you. You can stay bitter, or you can get better. And getting better doesn't mean pretending it didn't hurt. It means acknowledging the hurt and choosing to grow anyway. Second, remember that your worth isn't determined by whether someone chose to stay or leave. Their choice reflects their character, not your value. You are valuable, capable, worthy of love and respect, regardless of what anyone else does or doesn't do. And finally, this is your chance to rediscover yourself. Who are you when you're not performing for someone else? What do you want? What makes you happy? Now's the time to figure that out. The interview went viral. I started getting messages from women all over the world, thanking me for sharing my story, telling me I'd inspired them to leave toxic relationships, to start businesses, to choose themselves. It was overwhelming and humbling and beautiful. 8 years after the divorce, Sophie graduated college. At her graduation, she introduced me to her boyfriend, a kind young man studying to be a teacher. Sophie. Mom. I want you to know that watching you these past 8 years has completely shaped how I think about relationships. I know what I'm willing to accept and what I'm not. I know I don't need a relationship to be complete. I know that partnership should enhance my life, not eclipse it. You taught me that. Me. That's all I ever wanted. For you and Lily to see that women don't need to diminish themselves to be loved. Lily, now in college herself studying environmental science, echoed the sentiment. Lily, you're like a legend among my friends. They all call you the Phoenix Mom because you rose from the ashes. I laughed. The Phoenix Mom. I kind of liked that. 9 years after the divorce, I sold my consulting business for a substantial profit. I'd built it from nothing into something valuable, something worth buying. The sale gave me financial security I'd never had before. Freedom, options. David and I used some of the money to travel. We spent 3 months exploring South America. We hiked Machu Picchu, explored the Amazon, danced in Buenos Aires. We talked about writing a book together, combining his love of literature with my business acumen, creating a guide for entrepreneurs. On a beach in Brazil, watching the sunset, David turned to me. David, are you happy? Me. Completely. Are you? David. More than I ever thought possible. You know what I love most about you? Me. What? David. You've never needed me. You've always wanted me, chosen me, but never needed me. That makes our relationship so much stronger. You're with me because you want to be, not because you have to be. Me. That's the only way I know how to do this anymore. I spent too many years being half a person. I won't go back to that. David. I wouldn't want you to. You're perfect exactly as you are. 10 years after the divorce, I ran into Marcus at Lily's college graduation. He was there alone, no longer with Christina, apparently divorced again. He looked older, tired, diminished somehow. Marcus. Rebecca, you look incredible. Me. Thank you. You look well. A polite lie. Marcus. I heard about your business sale. Congratulations. You've done really well for yourself. Me. I have. Life's been good. Marcus. Do you ever think about us? About what might have been if I hadn't screwed everything up? Me. Honestly, no. Not anymore. Marcus. What happened between us was a lifetime ago. I'm a completely different person now. We both are. I hope you found peace. I hope you figured out whatever you were looking for when you left. Marcus. I don't think I'll ever find what you found. That contentment, that self-assurance. You've always been stronger than me. Me. I wasn't always. But I learned to be. It's never too late to learn. We said goodbye, and I felt nothing. No anger, no resentment, no sadness, no lingering attachment, just a mild fondness for the role he'd played in my story, the catalyst that had forced my transformation. He'd meant to break me, but instead, he'd freed me. That night, surrounded by my family, I thought about the journey I'd been on. 10 years. A decade of growth and change and becoming. The woman I was now barely resembled the woman I'd been that Tuesday morning when Marcus packed his garbage bags. I'd learned that happiness wasn't something someone else could give or take away. It was something I created every day through my choices, my attitudes, my actions. I'd learned that being alone and being lonely were two entirely different things. I'd learned that my value didn't come from being chosen by someone else, but from choosing myself. I'd learned that it was never too late to reinvent yourself, to chase dreams, to start over. Most importantly, I'd learned that I was enough. Just me, Rebecca. Not defined by my marriage, my divorce, my business, my relationships. Just me, in all my flawed, complicated, beautiful humanity. I was enough. And that knowledge, that deep, unshakable belief in my own sufficiency, was worth more than any marriage, any relationship, any external validation could ever be. The young woman who'd called me crying 10 years ago, Amber, had inadvertently given me a gift. By showing me that I wasn't the problem, that Marcus's issues ran deeper than any one relationship, she'd freed me from the prison of self-blame. I'd spent the first weeks after Marcus left wondering what I'd done wrong, how I'd failed, what I could have done differently. But the truth was, there was nothing I could have done. Marcus was chasing something internal, something no external person or relationship could ever satisfy. His leaving wasn't my failure. It was his. And my response to his leaving, my decision to rebuild rather than collapse, to grow rather than stagnate, to choose myself rather than pine for him, that was my success, my triumph, my victory. Standing there at Lily's graduation, watching my youngest daughter accept her diploma, I felt profound gratitude. Not for Marcus leaving, but for the person I'd become in his absence, for the strength I'd discovered, for the life I'd built, for the example I'd been able to set for my daughters. Sophie came over and hugged me. Sophie, I'm proud of you, Mom. Me, I'm proud of you too. Sophie, no, I mean it. You're my hero. You've shown me what it looks like to be a strong woman, to not let anyone diminish you, to build a life on your own terms. That's everything. And in that moment, I realized that this was the real legacy of my divorce. Not the business success or the financial security or even the happy remarriage. It was the example I'd set for my daughters. The knowledge I'd passed on to them that they didn't need anyone to complete them. That they were whole, valuable, capable on their own. That they should never settle for anything less than genuine partnership and respect. If Marcus's leaving me had taught my daughters that one lesson, then it had all been worth it. 10 years later, I stood exactly where I'd started, in my kitchen, making coffee. But everything had changed. The kitchen was different, remodeled years ago. The coffee maker was new. The cup was for me alone, no longer part of a couple's routine, and I was different. Fundamentally, irrevocably different. I was Rebecca. Not Marcus's ex-wife, not defined by what had been done to me, but defined by what I'd done with it. I was a successful businesswoman, a devoted mother, a loving wife to David, a friend, a mentor, a survivor, a thriver. I was whole. I was complete. I was exactly who I was meant to be. And if I could go back and talk to that broken woman standing in the same kitchen 10 years ago, watching her husband pack garbage bags, feeling like her world was ending, I'd tell her this. Your world isn't ending. It's beginning. The pain you feel right now is real and valid and overwhelming. But it won't last forever. One day, you'll wake up and realize you're not just surviving, you're thriving. You'll build a life beyond your wildest dreams. You'll discover strength you didn't know you had. You'll become someone you're actually proud to be. So feel the pain. Grieve the loss. But don't stay there. Don't let it define you. Use it. Let it transform you. Let it show you what you're capable of. Because you're capable of so much more than you know, you're going to be okay. Better than okay. You're going to be amazing. And I was.